Buddy here, Brady from BGWX. We are live breaking down a up and coming snowstorm threat here for Sunday into Monday. So a developing threat here that has come more prominent, obviously, over the last couple days. Not that it's extremely surprising, at least in my opinion, but it is definitely starting to become evident that we could be having something pretty notable to deal with here over the next couple of days of tracking here. So again, really just still a good ways to go with this, but again, we're going to be breaking this storm down tonight. So come on in. We're going to have lots of fun tracking, breaking this down here. So let's come on in and have a blast here. What do we say? How are we doing, everybody? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Matt, welcome. Excited to have you in here. Are you new here, Matt? Just get my thumbnail going here. We're about to get started. Little fun GFS run we had there, didn't we? Jacob, how are we doing? I gotta find my thumbnail. Ryan, how are we doing, my man? Happy you have been getting some snow, my man, lately. How are you doing? Glad to have you in here. About to get started here in a second. Just getting the thumbnail cooking. Oh man, you ain't holding, Mets fan. You ain't holding right away. You want you want the information out. Don't worry, we're gonna break it down. Mark Hoffman, how we doing? Uh, awesome, Matt. I'll take definitely as a compliment, never too high or low. Yeah, I try to stay steady with the analysis. I try to separate the analysis and the opinions pretty well. So I feel like I do a decent job here. All right, we got the thumbnail all set up there on YouTube. All right, let's get it cooking here. Let me get my pen tool. All right. I'm ready. Hoping it verifies. Sorry, my bad. You take your time. No, but I'm glad you're excited. I'm glad you're excited, Mets fan. I'm glad you're excited. That's what we want here. I want questions. Um, just don't. We're gonna break this down. There we go. We sign in there. Beautiful. There's our pen tool. Shout out Epic Pen. No, you do not get to see my password for Weatherbell. Sorry. Does not gonna happen. Again, if you're new around here or just found me, like our man Matt over here, which is awesome. CB19, welcome. How are we doing? Glad you find me insightful, Matt. My family not as much. They get bored of all the weather talk, but no, they love it. But yes, so we if you're new here, again, we're breaking this down here, especially for YouTube people, X people. If you're on here, you know what the deal is. You know why you're here, etc., etc. So if you're here on YouTube, yeah, get ready for some 500 millibar vorticity. You're right, Steven. Good call. That's exactly what we're going to be breaking down. Get ready. All hype, 500 millibar vorticity. So what we do here is, again, I like looking at all the in-depth pieces. I'm not going to break you down like a lot of other people do here and just click through the p-type map and say, oh, look, snow's coming. You got to keep a watch. This model shows X amount of snowfall on the snowfall map. That's not what we do here. A lot of you on X know that already, obviously, but here on YouTube, we break this stuff down, man. We break it down, but I like to answer all your questions, and I like for you to be able, to come in, ask your questions, again, I like to take time to break things down, and you guys can, listen a little bit, understand what's going on, but never feel like you should be hindering yourself from asking questions. If you live in a spot and you want to know, kind of just give me an area, big city nearby or something. Always more than happy to break it down. Again, we break things down, in deep here, and we want to be able to, in depth. We go deep in terms of, a deep dive into how we break things down. We look at all the different nuances. And my job really is just to try to forecast the storm as best as possible. And I'm going to use the models and the available tools at hand to try to do it the best I can. So that's kind of the overall synopsis. If you're new here and you're trying to figure out what I do, I like have some sort of database of knowledge. It's not incredible as others, but it works okay. It works okay so far. Yes, Cape Cod has snow potential this weekend. Yes, we will break down Providence as well. I promised my daughter snow angels. You shouldn't have done that yet. Don't get your daughter's hopes too high up. But I think you'll have a shot in Cape Cod. We'll see. We'll see though. There's some nuances to this that we're gonna break down tonight. I don't have a clear idea on the exact setup, um, but I do have a relative idea. And actually, I'll bring up. I kind of added a new color to the threat map. So, we'll live tweet that and we'll post that. So, but yes, how are we doing, everybody? How are we doing? So yes, we're breaking this down and let's get going. So, if you watched my video last night, for those that didn't, you can take a look at that after if you want to kind of see what my thoughts were, and maybe I might have missed something that I talked about last night that I might miss tonight. But we should be able to cover pretty much everything. There's a lot, in my opinion, to talk about. Exciting here. And some of it will be a lot of the same talking points we had a couple days ago on stream, and also some of the same talking points we had on the video last night. If you're in YouTube, hit that like, baby. Hit that like if you're in YouTube. If you're in X, just appreciate you being here. Same with anybody else on YouTube, but hit that like if you haven't already. It helps tremendously. You guys have no idea how much it helps. It sounds corny, but I promise you it helps a ton. So one thing that I know over, if we're just breaking the setup down again, just verbatim first for those maybe that are still figuring it out a little bit, what's going on. So what we have here is the boundary that sets up. So if I zoom out here, yes, excited too, Kevin. We're in breakdown. Yep, all the models, baby, all the models. So what we have here is we have this pole. Get a little bit thicker with the pen tool there. Luke, how are you doing, my man? How are we? Good to have you in here. So we have our TPV that's going to be sliding down. Just crashed out for a second. The screen. I don't know if you could see it, but for me it did. The boundary here along the Gulf Coast here, and this is going to be the theme over the next 10 days, maybe 7 to 10 days or so, over probably the next week or so along the Gulf. Now we'll provide southern snow chances as well, and keep an eye on maybe for a collab coming up with someone else. No, not Billy, not yet at least. Maybe down the line. Again, glad to have Billy back, but keep an eye on a collab, especially for YouTube down the line here. Maybe a little precursor for something. No promises yet, but keep an eye on it. And so this boundary sets up, and we're going to see this convection kind of get spread out along the Gulf. And what we're going to see here is this convection will slide northeast here. The difference in the pattern that we have now, if you're like, oh, it's suppressed again, the main difference we have going forward here is take a look at 500 height. Look at what starts happening here. We have this Atlantic ridging in place here. This Atlantic ridging comes into place. We're looking at 500 height, upper levels of the atmosphere here. So, right, we still have this big Alaskan Western Ridge, but better placement of the Western Ridge, not too overly, pressing on our system from the west too much. But this Atlantic ridging, what this does, you can see how our troughing is obviously quite vertical. Again, this is very broad still, and it's disorganized, so to say. This isn't like a storm system ramping up full on. There is a short wave though that comes on the bottom of this trough here, and it slides along, but you have this boundary out here in place. But now here's the difference between the previous pattern. So even though this has theoretically still does, I would lean away from it. Actually I would take that. I think this could be, I would lean, I think there's a better chance of this having more mixing issues than this being more of a concern of this missing out to sea too much. That's my take right now, where I stand with this, and I'll break down kind of why and where I'm at. Yep. Bring the snow, for sure. So we had this Atlantic ridge here in place, and that's the difference here. That's the difference. You can. This is what sets it up. This allows moisture. We talk about it in some of those tweets and those breakdowns. This allows moisture to drive up the coast versus get pressed out. Even if you have this high pressure here, blocking up here does nothing if you're too suppressed and you're not able to get the right placement of a western ridge, or you're not able to get the right timing of the upper level energy at 500. Meaning, if you can't get the right timing in the location of those pieces to get a good phase, um, that's not always the case, but with what we had and with just such a strong presence of the Western Ridge, it was going to be without any Atlantic blocking. It was very difficult. And I'd say the biggest thing was this 50-50 low kind of here was very much, we had no Atlantic blocking. So the stream separation was very poor. And so you had to really rely on amplification of the upper level low, even in such a favorable, phase of the more favorable phase of the MJO. um, I think that was I think that was, more part of the problem, not being able to get a major event for the Northeast at least. Mid-Atlantic cashed out. Really hasn't been that bad of a winter so far, in my opinion. I know hasn't been great for Southern New England, for Philly, New York City, and parts of um, you know Southern Northern New England, but I really don't think it's been that bad. I think it's carryover more from the past couple winters. A lot of people frustrated, and we get it. That's a good thing. You love snow and you want to see it, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. But we have been spoiled around the last decade, so I would remind you guys about that. We have been a little bit spoiled here, so it's and I do think this is actually going to end up being a good winter. We're going to talk about more about the longer range after, but this is the difference here. This Atlantic ridging in place, this drives, and also the presence here of ridging here across the tropics. This forces moisture to drive up the coast here. And you're going to see that. So if we slide back to 500 here, 500 millibar vorticity, there comes the screen there. No, I don't need you. There we go. And you can see this is the boundary that I'm talking about here that sets up. And this is actually going to intensify. And this is a key part here to watch. How much does this surface cyclone here, how much surface, just how much does this surface low intensify along the boundary? That'll be key. That will be the Saturday rain and snow that we see. And so this will be, it will be close, how much, yeah, if that intensifies a lot more, then that could allow this to be a little bit more progressive. But one thing we have noticed that has offset that potential regardless is the increase in our Atlantic ridging. Take a look here at the past. It's been 6 runs in a row now, but I'm not going to switch to tidbits just to get off point too much. Look at the Atlantic ridging. You see it more present over the last 4 runs or so, being stronger here in this area, especially, not only a little bit further west. That's the big thing here. We haven't changed the Atlantic ridging so much further north, but what we have done is increased it here in the Western Atlantic. And that has forced our storm to be able to have to ride a little bit further north in this convection here along the boundary to get pulled in a little bit better, right? Those showers and thunderstorms, that's convection. Forces that to get pulled into the flow more a little bit. So what you notice here now on models is in this setup, as you can see, this is our TPV. This is deep, cold Arctic air, 498 height line there. Peep that right there. Hard to see, but that's a 498 height line. Very deep, cold Arctic air. And we're going to talk about some of the ingredients and why I think this has the potential to be more than what some were thinking. Over the course of span here, maybe even still now. This cold air presses down, right? So this big old trough swings through here associated with the TPV. And along that, you see this short wave develop here, and then upper level low starts to form off of that. But you also have this boundary right here. But this can't get so suppressed and just slide out because of our Atlantic ridging. So now this Atlantic ridging in place here forces this moisture to get pulled upward, and a stronger, more amplified upper level low, just a little bit like we've seen. It really hasn't been that different. I'm telling you guys, it really hasn't been as different as you think, the upper level low evolution. And I'll quickly tangent to show you what I'm talking about. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. If we slide to hour 72, we'll zoom in for you guys a little bit more. We'll go to Eastern US. Peep this. We'll go like the last 20 runs here. This is, look at this. I know, but this is way far out now. You see how far, this is 210 hours out at this point. So look at this, about hour, 192-ish maybe. Look at this thing. The GFS lock in on this thing all the way out. This is remarkable consistency for this far out, for this kind of system too. And so I was like, you got to get away from the P-type maps. You got to get away from them. And now you've seen, look at the trends here. That upper level low, you can see get amplified more and more each run. More and more, you can see that. And so we did have a little bit of a short-term trend, but it wasn't drastic. It wasn't drastic. In fact, it's a little bit more faster now, actually. But our Atlantic ridging is kind of offsetting the progressive a little bit faster. So our storm's coming in faster, but also amplifying, which in my opinion is almost better because this negates more mixing concerns instead of being so slow, reserved, and amplifying. This helps negate some mixing concerns actually. And that's why you saw the GFS actually almost push the upper level low a little bit further east on this run, but it was stronger. You can see how it was a little bit further west almost. This pushes a little bit further east, but it's more amplified. It wraps in, I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see. It wraps in more convection here. And the more convection that this wraps in on the boundary, the more you have. This is why I say you cannot underestimate the potential with this storm. The GFS is a very possible, in fact, I think it's a middle ground right now between some of these. I know it's people, you got to let go of your struggle with the GFS and not look at don't view it as the model as the GFS. View it as a possible scenario in a middle ground. Don't view it as GFS, blah, blah, blah. You got to take that out you have to take out that concern, that emotional tie to, it's not emotional. The GFS has struggled, but don't view it like that. You have to view it for what the setup and what it is and what's depicted between across the models and what we have here. You cannot view it as this is a snowstorm that, and it's the GFS and oh my God, the GFS is a progressive model too. This is a progressive model, I will note. So it's inherently, its bias is to lack wrapping and convection. So on this, I would be even suspicious on some of these runs that it's not amping, that it's not pulling in enough convection possibly. Now, one thing I could say that's possible is the GFS, the only thing I could say is where this could be too amplified is it not amplifying the boundary, the surface low along here and allowing a little bit more to get pulled in. That's the only thing. But even then, that could potentially offset a little bit by the fact that the GFS has a progressive bias to pull in convection as well. And this is a exact certain scenario here. So some of these runs over the next couple days, don't be surprised if you see them like pull, maybe still increase stronger. But if you see some of these runs flip, become a little bit further east on the GFS, but, still look, decent or whatever, don't be surprised here if some of these runs do that. I think there will be some convective. This will be a definite convective feedback potential on this storm. But you can see here, look what happens. Our trough, very broad, but it does turn negative here. Our trough does start to turn negative. You can see that here, about neutral at this point, and then our trough starts going negative. And so we start wrapping the flow in, right? And that has to do with this ridging here. You can see at 591 height line here. So all this, you can see how it's not going out here, getting pulled in. It's getting pulled in. So it's getting pulled into the flow here. And so this is what allows you, right? You turn your trough negative, you start wrapping the flow into your system, and you actually get on the Canadian, what you get is that snake tongue look to actually develop here even, which is very, very impressive. You see that here? You get full on snake tongue on the Canadian. Right, so this is why it's an interior solution, kind of pulls it farther up. GFS does the trough a little bit further east. Now, a lot of you are dismissing the Canadian completely, and I can't do that. One reason why, again, consistency is not everything, but I'm not dismissing it completely. I'm not dismissing it completely. Sometimes it is very hard to stop a trend. It can be very hard to stop a trend sometimes. So this is why I say I'm more concerned about mixing for coastal places rather than it missing altogether. So that's why I say that. Not that I still think this is a little bit too far west. Don't get me wrong. In my current thoughts, They align closer, not with the specifics, but the general idea of the GFS. And it's a good middle ground, I feel like, right now. Not because it's the GFS or whatever, because of what it shows. Because of what's depicted, I feel like it's a very good middle ground between what we have right now. In the Canadian here, we can use the RGM so we can get a little bit higher resolution. Um, you can see that in the Canadian and the RGM, by the way, are going to always be pretty much the same 80 until 84 hours out. By the way, in case you didn't know, it's just the RGM is just the Canadian at a higher resolution. That's all it is. And so that's why you see the RGM so amplified. But one thing it does highlight is the potential, because it really amplifies the upper level low. And it doesn't actually even pull in as much as you think of the boundary. It doesn't actually. It does, but it really is able to get that upper level low just amplified initially. So there's the Canadian. You can see that really gets that upper level low. It comes in with a pretty strong vort to start with, actually. And if that were the case, you definitely have a potential for a stronger storm than you think. I'm telling you, we're going to break down why some of these dynamics that are at play. Yep, we'll talk about Long Island. And we'll kind of talk about, what's going on here. No, the troughing in the middle of the country is not too strong. This is, again, we talked about it. The difference is here, you look at your Atlantic ridging here, so this is present. Stuff has to get forced to ride up the coast here. This doesn't get just completely shunted out to sea here. At least in my opinion, it's theoretically, even then, I think at lightest, this is probably more of a coastal scraper. At lightest, this is not going to miss out to sea. At least in my opinion, I'll stand on that. I'll stand on business with that one. Maybe going forward, I don't know, but for this setup here, this is not going to be. I really would lean away from this being able to go out to sea here. I just think your ridging is too present here. You're going to be able to wrap a lot of the flow into this upper level low. You turn your trough negative. Once you turn your trough negative, even if broader, that allows you to be able to pull it in. Now, keep an eye here on western ridge amplification. Sometimes models, even into the shorter range, can struggle a little bit with this. But we'll keep an eye on that western ridge as well out there in the Pacific, because that could affect the placement and in the timing of the upper level energy, which ergo every little thing will affect how it wraps in the boundary. So you'll very unlikely see consistency run to run here. I mean, really good consistency. This consistency will be about the same run to run probably for the most part, or it will change. You get what I'm trying to. Here's what I'm trying to say is you're not going to see and you never do, is my point. You're not going to see every run here like show something pretty similar run to run. You're going to see some changes just because of this boundary here. Every run, some runs will wrap in more, some will wrap in less, and it'll depend on the timing, where the upper level low pops, etc. But I feel like you can. I don't care about the totals so much on this run, as fun as they are. But I think the GFS does a decent job here at highlighting the middle ground we have here and where it pops that upper level low. And the clues are at 500 and 700 here. You can get away from the surface. I know you'd think I know I've been on top of this one. I give myself a small pat in the back for being able to sniff this out, but the clues reside at 500 and 700. All right, get away from the surface if you want to figure out what's going to happen with this. And that's the key here. That's the key. I do think with this, I think Southern New England has a higher Southern New England, and even technically Maine, even though Maine's more boom or bust. I think New England has the highest ceiling with this system. More time you can see for convection to wrap in here, and for more significant banding to take place, and for 700 banding to develop more. I think so. I think the highest ceiling here is in New England, in my opinion, but not that it would be like so much crazier, maybe, but just the highest ceiling, for the highest swath of totals, I think is going to be centered over New England here. That being said, though, you still get do think you got to keep an eye still in this area across PA, Jersey, Hudson Valley, because especially if we have a little bit more of an interior solution, not all out RGM, but something closer, like in between of the RGM and the GFS, then that definitely becomes a factor for potential, another local swath there. It could be like a double swath here, something like that, or closer to the coast. I don't know, somewhere roughly, I think, just based on the look here at 500. And again, the clues are there. It's always been, the 500 look has always been there, in my opinion. Different timing with the strength and, the evolution of the whole thing. But yeah, we're going to talk about the ceiling, Luke. Don't worry, we're going to talk about that. It's just all about that. Yeah, Stephen, even from a Worcester perspective, I don't think this is I live in Worcester, basically, a town over. So I really don't think this is I really don't think I'd be too worried about, this missing Worcester, so to say, or Massachusetts in general. At least in my opinion, I think Worcester could end up being in a pretty good spot. Fingers crossed. Not just saying that because I live there, but I don't want to jinx myself ever for getting snow. But I really, again, that's obviously not analysis, but just those are just some general thoughts of analysis here. This is kind of the breakdown. Again, you got to get away from like the GFS and all that. It's not about that. You got to get away from that. Model's a model. It's highlighting a scenario, right? The GFS has not been good, but it's still, you still can't just like dismiss it. And you also can't dismiss the scenario played out. I could care less that it's the GFS, honestly, about that. I know it is. I'm not looking at it. You got to understand how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at where are we going to end up on the final. What are those final model runs going to end up looking like the night before? What is this? How does this storm end up playing out? That's how I forecast all of these. That's how I forecast all of these systems. What can happen from now and then? What's going to happen from now and then to when we get to the day of the storm? So when we get to Sunday and we're throwing out a snow map, when we get there, what's going to happen, right? That's how I forecast. So I don't care about what tonight's GFS run showed, so to say. Like I do, obviously, and I take that and input it, but I'm not putting all my weight. I'm putting my weight on use them as tools, and based on what the information I have available, try to make the best forecast I can. That's how I try to operate, and that's the process I found that works pretty well, at least for me. Once we get closer, we can start looking at specific things of analysis when we get much closer. But for now, our tools we have, and that's how I like to operate. I'm not a huge person on being able to do the connections across continents. It's way out of my league. I'm still an amateur, so I'm definitely not crazy. So for those like, man, I hope the GFS, man, it's not going crazy again. It's like you can't view it in that lens here. Like this isn't like you can't view the GFS as like so ridiculously off its rock, right? Especially when the Canadian is right now showing 12 to 18 inches across the whole freaking interior northeast quarter. So like that's my point here with this is you can't start going off you can't go too crazy with hyperbolizing what the GFS is and isn't on a run-to-run scenario. I don't care about the fact that it's all that stuff. It's just this is a model run. This is a scenario it's highlighting, and I think this actually works. Forget the exact totals. It works as a good middle ground. And I'll show you the Canadian again. Play this here. All right, here's the Canadian. You can see that upper level load just amplifies much more. And again, since it's still, remember, you still have the TPV pressing. So this is enabled. This is really the limit here. And you can see the Canadian presses and then kind of slides out really because it's unable to press anymore. Right? It's just there's too much pressing on the system. Otherwise, this would work up and this would be an inland runner. And that's not it. That's not the scenario. So we're pressing on the system too much to really go. I think the CMC hit the limit here, in my opinion, for probably about as far interior as we could see this go. But it highlights, the end range. It highlights the end range, right? But yeah, Bart, it's not just like, oh, I like the GFS, man. It shows what we want. Nah, it's not. It's great, whatever it is. But I care more about where we're going to end up. And so I try to use the tools. The fact what I look at is, oh, the Atlantic ridging was stronger again on the GFS. What does this mean? This allows us more wiggle room here for amplification. So allows us to, even if it's faster, a little bit more progressive, like it was on this run, or if we have a stronger western ridge, since we keep amplifying this eastern ridge here, like we have 6 straight runs in a row, no signs of stopping at least yet. 6 straight runs in a row, we've amplified this eastern ridge here, and that means we're going to continue to allow this to amplify more. So you can make the upper level low, and the specifics of that, you're giving more wiggle room to be able to do that. Now, again, you do that too much, then we start looking. Then you start looking at mixing concerns. But for now, I'm not getting too concerned, unless like Delmarva. That's really the only spot for mixing concerns, and maybe Outer Cape, Outer Cape, Cape and Islands. That's really the only spots right now that have maybe some actual legitimate mixing concerns. But until then, even this GFS scenario here, I'll show you the P-type map. I don't care for it, just shows, can highlight what I'm trying to say here. You can see on this run, 18Z, OZ, it's stronger, but it didn't necessarily push the mixing line that much, like further west, right? You can see how it holds pretty well. It didn't push the mixing line any further west. It just, it slid the storm a little bit further east, and it's going to amplify a little bit later, but more. So it takes just a little bit more time to amplify as much, but once it does, it really gets going. And that's 500 look is gorgeous. The 700 look was gorgeous. That's a death band right there. That wouldn't pivot, wouldn't be able to pivot because of the storm motion, but man, that'd be a hell of a band right there. That would be some heavy snowfall rates right there. Very heavy. And this is why when we start talking about potential and totals, I'm pretty excited for the potential here in terms of snowfall totals with this. And here's why. I think a lot of people are playing behind because you look at those P-type maps and those snowfall maps. Not calling anybody out, but I'm just saying, like, if you get caught looking at those consistently, I feel like the clues have resided here in just terms of it's very basic meteorology. It's not anything crazy, but very basic meteorology in terms of if we slide here, we'll go to air, and we'll go to 850 anomalies. Very simple meteorology here. Very simple. Very cold air. Very warm air. Cold air meets warm air goes kaboom. It's very simple. That's like layman's terms, right? The more synoptic, the more scientific, I should say, breakdown rather than synoptic breakdown of this is the baroclinic zone that sets up here. You have very cold Arctic air in place here from the TPV. Very cold. It's not thermals on the RGM. It's It's not thermals. It's the 500 millibar setup. Just because the rain snow line it makes sense. It's just one of the more interior solutions, but it definitely isn't. It's not off its rocker with the thermals, Ron Paul. But so we have very cold Arctic air that presses here. Again, keep throwing your questions in. We're going to answer all of them. We got to break it down, right? You got to know what to expect first. So all this warm air meeting this, and you can display can be displayed here at the surface, right? Our TPV is providing very cold air. It's not just regular cold. This is deep Arctic cold air, ladies and gentlemen. We're working with here. It's very cold air. So if I slide to surface temperature, and we can go Celsius, it's fine. No, I want Fahrenheit. That's it. Displays it better. This is cold Arctic air here. Very cold. And it's not going to be ridiculously tight because we're only going to be able to wrap up so much. But look at this here. Look at this gradient we start creating there. You see this warm air gets wrapped into this system here. In a stronger system, the more it's going to wrap. The more warm air it's going to pull to meet that cold air. And you can see here, more noticeable here, 0Z tonight versus 06Z this morning. You see that? 06Z versus OZ. I'll zoom in even a little bit more for you. maybe not an all-out blockbuster, but I don't know. It depends on your definition of a blockbuster, but semantics or whatever. Cold air meets the warm air here. You have very good. You're able to meet, and there's the difference. Look at it from OZ tonight versus 060 this morning, which was still a solid hit on the 060. 060 was a very solid hit. You see the difference? Look at that. You see how you're wrapping more up here, right? Very simple cyclogenesis here. Amplifying a cyclone. You pulling in warm air to meet cold air. And you create this thermal gradient here. And the stronger of an upper level low you get, the closer that boundary gets to that upper level low. So the higher these height lines are in the ridge here, the more convection we can wrap. The more we can wrap in, and you can increase your ceiling a lot more you think you can, because the ingredients you have on tap here are very classic to be able to get a very major winter storm. It's just this thing's going to be moving in and out so fast. So it's not, obviously it's not going to be a widespread 1 to 2 feet. We're not talking about that kind of storm. Not going to have the time to be able to do that. But don't underestimate. This is not one of those light to moderate snows just because maybe the totals could be for some people. I'm not concerned. I'm just I'm relaying scenarios here. I just had my thoughts, Ron Paul, but don't underestimate the potential here, because just from a simple synoptic baseline of the setup here, there are some very, very good ingredients to be able to work with. And what you could be able to create here, you could be able to create some real strong banding here. This isn't, again, like I was saying, it's not a light, moderate event. These are moderate. This is when this comes. If this really does hit, I'm still a little reluctant to go all the way in with where I'm starting to lean here. Again, I've been playing ahead so far, so I've been ahead of the model so far, so I'm happy with that. But I got to be I'm a little reluctant to go all the way in with this. But there is some more significant potential here than some of you realize. I think with this system, it doesn't matter the pattern, too progressive, whatever it's getting pressed. It's very simple. Like some of that stuff matters, but within a setup is a setup, and the basic meteorology remains the same. And so when I look at this, for me, I think there's significant potential here for some of the ceiling with this setup. I think the GFS highlights that. The GFS highlights that. The Canadian highlights that to another level. I'm not putting so much weight in the Canadian. I don't know if that's getting confused. I'm just saying, don't dismiss it as quickly as you want to, just because it doesn't show what we want necessarily for many people. Don't dismiss it. I talked about this a couple nights ago on stream, and Kevin was to the point before I could even get there. I look at this more as a January 22, February, like in and out, like moderate heavy snow, like banding sets up in and out quickly, but before you know it, it dumped a good amount of snow. Like it could be one of those. So, not trying to overhype. It's a different, it's a different setup. I liked the 500 signature a little on January 2022, I think, but this is one of those where you can't just dismiss it because the p-type map doesn't show it consistently, or the euro doesn't show it yet. You never know, in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, the euro all of a sudden might show it, and then you'll believe. But I can't just go off the euro p-type map. So the euro, if we look at that now, because it has been one of the better performing. It hasn't been as great as a lot of you think it has, but it's been held its ground so far this winter, obviously, prevailing in the medium range versus some of the other guidance. So I guess Canadian did a decent job too, but Euro's really not all that far off from the GFS and the Canadian, and a little bit more from the Canadian, but look at the difference there. A little bit more amplified with the upper in those height lines, allowing this to amplify a little bit more, but it's not quite as far as you think Right here, it's just not able to wrap just quite as much convection here. Not able to wrap just enough here. Not able to get that upper level low moving for far enough north here. Um, to be able to get some of the bigger totals you see, but it's so freaking close. Like you guys don't realize how close. Like the OZ euro could very well show, especially with all the other, with the NAM not what it shows. The NAM is likely amplifying the boundary too much, therefore weakening what comes behind it. And the euro actually, I think, could possibly be doing that as well, possibly a little bit more. But it's not as far off. It's just a tick away, and that's it. And so it wouldn't shock me here. Maybe it stays around the same, or maybe it's like a close to an 06C possibly. But the euro is very, very close. The euro is very, very close. It's just the upper level low look is there. It just doesn't consolidate the energy just quite as much. But the placement of it's not a problem of placement of the upper level low. It's not a problem. It's just a matter of consolidating and amplifying the upper level low a little bit. And that's the difference. So that's the thing we have here with this system that kind of, I think, is going to lock in a decent storm track here and prevent this from, going like crazy interior. This can't go too far interior. It really can't go any more than what the Canadian's showing, in my opinion. And then this really can't go so far out to sea too, because you have that ridge in place to the east, and you have those height lines are going to be able to pull in moisture, up the coast versus being pressed out and suppressed like we've been talking about. So I don't remember February 9th, 2017 that well, but that was I remember that being a pretty big snowstorm. So I don't think it's like that. Definitely not the same, probably not the same setup if I had to guess, or at least not close. But how many hours will it be snowing, given location? It's a little bit tough to say right now, because precip shield, I'm still a little iffy on, to be honest. I still like, I'll pull up my threat map and we'll let the euro start to load out here, and I'll pull up my threat map, and I just kind of made a new one. So I don't know if it's saved actually. I can post it after, it's fine. The same idea. I just added a purple. I just added some purple. That was it. I can just highlight it on the screen. Again, this was my video from last night. You can kind of look at that to check out some of my thoughts there. But this is the threat map that I made here, and I like this. I really like this. I'm glad. I was like, oh, do I want to do this? The models aren't showing it yet. Do you want to go out on a limb here? I was like, yeah, I believe it. So I'm glad I went with my gut here. But this kind of area, I believe, here we're watching. This is the threat area I'm watching. And then I would even draw with it's close. I'm a little bit, it depends on the orientation, the way the storm amplifies. I think I'll include, I think this area though, it could go a little bit further interior. It could go, but I think this area here probably favored for the most, if I had to guess right now. Theoretically, it could extend down. If you amplify the upper level low earlier, it could extend down into northern Maryland. So, you got to keep an eye here for maybe like a locale, like something. Band sets up here or something stronger, and you get a nice swath out here, and then you get maybe an even bigger one, out here into Long Island, into Maine and southern New England. But so that's kind of the general idea. I would say anywhere really where I kind of shade in this area that you have a threat for accumulating show for snow, and then within the heaviest, then kind of where you see those darker colors, I feathered the map, so that's why it looks like the way it does. And then kind of within, again, this area that I drew here-ish, kind of, maybe roughly, somewhere. This could maybe be a little bit further south, depending on the evolution, but I think there could be some mixing concerns for this area. So keeping an eye on that. I think this is where 6+ inches of snow is possible. That's where I'll kind of go land right now. I'm not going to go too much further. I will say though, not to say like I would say this whole area is going to see. I'm just saying this whole area, could possibly see 6+. Could possibly see 6. I'm going back and forth up here in Maine, so I'm having a little bit trouble. I'm having a little bit of trouble with that right now, but this kind of general area is where I think 6+ is possible. Extend this a little bit further down. And then you don't have enough time here in the mid-Atlantic. You'll be in the beginning stages. So you don't have enough time to really get going here, but you can still get pretty good. Like you could still get a good 3 to 6, I think, in the mid-Atlantic. Theoretically, some locally higher totals, but I don't think this is the mid-Atlantic. This is still could be a nice storm here for the mid-Atlantic, actually. And you're just going to add on more snow totals. And you're going to be able to cash in some here. So I think the mid-Atlantic can still get pretty decent snow out of this. Like, it wouldn't shock me if you're able, if some places could, be able to get 6+ inches. But for the most part, I think this is more, of a less of a, a snowstorm and more of a, a notable accumulating snow event to, borderline snowstorm. I guess for DC maybe, but even then, the further north and east you go in the mid-Atlantic, the better, I think. So I'd favor this area in the mid-Atlantic to be able to get the most here, and then the Appalachians too. They'll be able to get some decent snow out of this as well. So yeah, so I'm trouble in southwest. I'm still going back and forth a little bit on Maine. I want to see how we develop. Here's the key up here. If you live up here, I got a good amount of followers up there still, obviously. Does the upper level low, does it pop early and then start sliding more? Or does it develop late and amplify more? Or does it develop early and amplify a lot? That'd be Canadian. That's a Canadian. Or does it develop later and amplify up? That's a GFS. This isn't specific low placement, just a general idea. And the Euro kind of does this, but then doesn't really amplify quite as much. So it's a little bit flatter, at least at 18Z. So that's my question. Are we really your thing in Maine is you should be looking at the Atlantic Ridge. You want the Atlantic Ridge to continue to strengthen, and that can allow you to cash. That's how you start offsetting your bust potential, I guess, out there. Delete that so the Mac doesn't go berserk here. All right, let's get the OZ cooking here, the Euro, and we'll let the Euro kind of ride out here, and let's answer some questions. Hit the like if you haven't already in YouTube. Hit the like if you haven't, greatly appreciated. And let's answer some questions here. What do we got as we let the Euro cook out here? Yeah, props to the Euro AI. Yeah, this is the Euro. We can show the Euro AI briefly. Euro AI has been very consistent. Lower resolution model, obviously, but you can see how consistent it's been with that upper level low, holding that same position really for quite some time now. You can see that just holding steady. Look at that. Very good. And you can see on the P-type map, same thing as well. Euro AI just, consistently doing pretty well with this storm. So you got to give it credit. People see there. Amplifying it actually faster and more amplified. That's been the trend, and that's good for us. Let's see. Let me scroll here some of the X stuff as well on YouTube. This thing rains in Hartford. I'll go ballistic. Yeah, I would too. Hartford, and I have trouble imagining it gets that far the rain snow line, but I'm not going to rule it out completely. I think the CMC will be close as far as precipitation, but at least that would be awesome. That would be awesome, Bloody, if we could get the Canadians and shift east. Unfortunately, it's a more amplified solution, so it's going to be hard to get those kind of totals in that area, but not possible, I guess. Non-storm, why does the O0 run come on so late on tidbits, like 5 a.m.? They upload it late. I don't know why tidbits uploads it so late there, but they do. How's North Central Connecticut looking? You were in my area to be able. I think accumulating snow is likely, and potentially even 6+ is possible for pretty much all of Connecticut. To be honest, pretty much almost all of Southern New England. I'm not saying widespread 6+. By the way, I'm just saying 6+ possible, with accumulating snow likely, and then accumulating snow, in that general area. Pretty much this general area have a good shot at accumulating snow. Like I would say, like a lot of this area here that's darker shaded, I would say pretty good shot to see 3+ inches with like 6+ possible. Like I'm not going into exact totals specifically quite yet, but I do think we've alluded to some of the ceiling. Like you could like this wouldn't shock me if we end up talking. Depends on the setup here, but it wouldn't shock me if we started talking about double digits. Depending on the evolution here, but we'll see. The euro, ladies and gentlemen, is going to get more amplified here. The euro is going to come to consensus, and ladies and gentlemen, that should do it. That should do it. Very well done. We have officially gotten ourselves in a position to get a snowstorm here now. The ridge stronger here in the Atlantic. Those height lines higher up. Beautiful job done here, ladies and gentlemen. Where'd it go? There we go. So we have done the job. It's fantastic. Keep it. Very good. So that will do it. That will do it. We got the euro on board now. Love to see it. Am I in a good spot? Yeah. I think you're in a decent spot. Yeah, the NAM, we talked about it. The NAM's just over amplifying the boundary here. So this storm here, it's over amplifying it, in my opinion. I think it's just struggling in general. I think it's struggling with the upper level energy. It's really struggling with handling the TPV right now as well. Thank you for calling this early. I don't know. The upper level look was there. Synoptically, again, the look was there. You got to look at the thermodynamics of this thing, man. The thermodynamics were there. Man, this euro. Woo. Oh, yeah. You love to see it. That's almost Canadian with the look of the upper level low. It's not going to be, but man, that's a good look. A little bit than the GFS. GFS is actually more progressive with initially the upper level low, but wraps it in. The GFS has more amplified look, but a little bit further east. But look at this here. Look at this look here on the euro. Oh yeah. Oh mama. Look at that. You don't consolidate 700 perfectly here, but look at that. Yeah, baby. Now we're talking. We did it, ladies and gentlemen. We did it. Yeah, this is gonna be at least a widespread 4 to 8 here. I'm telling you, on the euro. It doesn't get any better than those late night dreams, watching the model run come in and it trend the way you want for snow. Ugh, this is non-analysis, by the way, for those that are curious. This is the emotional. I am a human still, even though the analysis, I try to keep it a buck and keep it, I keep it real. But I do, yeah, hey, Yasha, don't go that far. Don't go that far, but I am human, so I do have the emotions. Look at that 700. Oh, this thing's gonna pop here. Look at this. Beautiful. This area right here, man, on this run. This whole area is gonna pop. Beautiful. Beautiful. Mid-Atlantic's gonna do good too. Look at that. Look at the band that sets up here. Mid-Atlantic on this run is gonna right here. See, this is your opportunity in the Mid-Atlantic. Your opportunity. It gets going early on. Look at that. Man. Let's take a look at the P-type map here. There we go. Skipped 12-hour course, but beautiful. Beautiful. You love to see it. You love to see it. Unbelievable. Live tweet. I believe it does. Oh, you love to see it. Beautiful. Fantastic. Freaking fantastic. You. That's what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you do it. Shout out the Canadian for about 2.5 straight days. Maybe too far interior now, maybe, but we got to give the Canadian credit here for sure. And the Euro AI. Still 2.5 days out though, so don't get too amped up yet. Yeah, it's still, that's my point, Bart. It's still a little early, but you know, the setup's the setup. So you're not going to change the placement of the upper level low so much here. There we go. Obviously not an English major. But I will say the Euro was fairly consistent with the upper level energy. So you got to give credit there as well. The Euro did a decent job. GFS was struggling a little bit, limping. Oh man, look at the band that gets going there. Oh, the Euro is 1 frame late from being even more. The Euro is 1 frame late from being some real fireworks. I mean, this is great. Don't get me wrong, but 1 frame away from being even more fun here. There's your P-type map. Skipping the good stuff for New York City. Yeah, man. Hey, listen. I'm gonna keep going back to this. Our map is at right now. I really like. I'm very happy with how I've handled this storm so far. But we're not done yet. So I can't. Again, we're not popping. Like I said, can't pop champagne yet. We're not yet. I wouldn't worry about the NAM. The NAM is so far. NAM is so far off its rocker right now. You can't worry about what it's showing right now. Dude, don't worry about the NAM. Not that we do too much anyways. But yeah, you can't worry about the NAM. I really like where my map is at right now. I like it. I think, again, this area here, man, this is where I'm watching. This is where I think 6+ is possible. And I could extend this further up. This is where I think 6+ is theoretically possible. In the interior, we'll have pretty good ratios as well. That's another thing. There'll be pretty solid ratios with this storm. especially for the interior. Close to the coast, maybe not as good. But that's the usual case as well. So yeah, you want to look at the good stuff now, or what? The fun stuff there on the euro. Beautiful. Solid. There's your solid 4 to 8 on the euro. And the euro's 1 frame away. Euro's 1 frame away from being. But again, get away. I'm telling you, the story. You know, the P-type maps just illustrate the story here. And I'm always look at them, but they don't tell the story. They don't tell the full story for sure. So don't get too tied to you know what those show from run to run, especially. Yeah. Am I right? The Canadian has no. Certain setups it does. Canadian actually can sometimes have a progressive bias just because the lower resolution of a model it is. But now we are in RGM range. But you know the Canadian just you know it's like actually Canadian's like the euro, but if it amplified like the GFS, basically, it's kind of how I would view it. Like totals wise, right now, like I would like take all three and you put them together. That's kind of where I'm at on a totals basis. I really like the consensus we have here with models. You take all three, put them, mush them together. That's what I would do. See, the GFS is a little bit, just a little bit more amplified with the upper level low. A little bit more amplified. Location's just a little bit further east, but it's also more amplified with the height lines here. So that's another thing. The fact the GFS is interacting with the boundary more, though, like still makes me think the euro may be struggling a little bit with that. So I think, you know, GFS actually just, you know, has digs a little bit further south, you know, more for this to interact with the boundary. The euro was speedy with this run too. The Canadian, let's go RGM. Higher resolution. You can see RGM in the euro. You can see the Canadian is just a over amplified euro basically. So like I would take a good right now. You take a good combination of all three of the models right now, and that's exactly those are like pretty close to my current thoughts. You take all three models and you put them into one. Those are my current thoughts right now. No, you're not spamming the chat. Wins, Jacob. You're definitely not spamming. Let's see. Not to my wooden bed. Yeah, I don't. Let's see. Yeah, the job's not done. 100% Ashan. Would love to get a half foot in southern New Hampshire, man. Yeah. Again, I would say like right now, I'd go like 3+ likely for a lot of those areas that I drew 6+ plus possible. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Yes, the euro was good, Chef Curry. Putting zero stock in the name, this one would have been by far. Yeah. They just stop updating the models, you know, stop improving them, and that's the result you get. But man, this Canadian run was special. I loved it. It was beautiful. I know I didn't love it for what it showed for snow for the coast, but man, gorgeous, gorgeous 500, 700 look too. Look at that. Holy, gorgeous, gorgeous. That's why you see the totals you do there, right? The totals aren't the totals on the GM aren't like crazy. Like they're reasonable. It shows. It's just what it shows might be a little bit too far west. Just a little bit, maybe a little bit too interior. But yeah. No, I will join. It'll probably join like within 48 hours. That's probably when the NAM does. Within 48 hours, you can kind of start putting some stock in the NAM a little bit. Like not like really much of anything, but like long range NAM though is always like I don't know why we're so like the long range NAM is always never. It's like long range NAM is just not supposed to like do well. It's just not designed to go out that far really and do like it's a higher res model. It's not designed to kind of do that. RGM's a little bit different, so it can kind of do that a little bit better than like in NAM, for example. That's the difference. Let's see what else. What models might have I have missed? Oh, the ensembles. That's what we can look at the ensembles. They become less relevant to current dots, but you do like to see the support still there. So I'd still do look at them even as we get closer. I want to see if the ensembles did what they did at 500. 18Z, yes, they did. Beautiful. Look at the Atlantic Ridge, stronger. This is 6 straight runs in a row now. Not only was it stronger here, but also pushed further west here. And my man Jacob and Bart, Maine here, this is most important for you. Amplifying this ridge so you can amplify the height lines here and allow your storm to push further north. That's more critical, especially further north as well. Here, you following your ridging up here. That will be critical. That'll be some freaking important stuff for Maine there. So let me slide to the panels. That's what we're going to look at. That's why I like looking at first. I like looking at all the panels before I look at the surface snow total thing on the ensembles. Again, some people get confused by this. And just, you know, I feel like I try to put a lot of context on those because those can be so deceiving. But here's the GEFS here, 6 hours. Man, look at that. GEFS is on board. GEFS is on board, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. GEFS has even got a couple interior ones too. Man, GEFS is all. This would be a failure if it were to miss that bad. Within this close, this would be such a failure. I can't imagine it being so off. This is such good ensemble support here. This is such good ensemble support. Almost too good. No, it's not almost good. It's just that's really good. There's not a single miss. There's not one single miss here on the ensembles. Not one. There's not one miss here. First ensemble suite that we've had with 0 misses. Not one. It's beautiful. It's what you love to see. This is 10-1 too. It's going to be higher for the interior, these ratios. So if we slide to like, and here's the thing. You need to get out of your head with those snow total maps. Say like the Euro, even this Euro shows 4.3 of Kujera for my house on this storm. And it shows 3.2, 10-1. You gotta get that out of your head. If you want to try to get this right, that's not gonna do it. I'm telling you. Till you're blue in the face, you can look at all those all you want. Those are not going to tell you the story. Those are not going to tell you the story. So you can stick to those that you want, but those aren't, because you just don't realize like how simple, how like, even though we saw the Euro show basically like a very low end snowstorm now, and the GFS kind of has more of a moderate snowstorm, and the Canadian has like a pretty significant one actually. That's a blockbuster. But you know what? You know the thing is, you can't get too caught and looking at all those little individual, surface maps. They're fun to look at, but man, you can't hold weight on those when you're looking at it, man. You just can't. They're not valuable. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. Look at that there on the GEFS. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Gorgeous looking. You can't get too much higher than you had at 18s. They already had it. I think we had maybe a member skew here. We had one showing like freaking 15 inches on the last one. Just more spread or less spread, more consistency here. Love it. And you saw it on the panels. So you look at the totals. You look at the totals maybe for one area, and you're like, oh man, it showed less. No man, that showed. That's perfect. Exactly what you just wanted. You can't go so much higher. It's 10-1 too. It's a 10-1 map. You gotta remember, ensembles. It's freaking 3 days out, or whatever. And so you can't expect it to do, so crazy. That's pretty good right there. So that's exactly what you want to see. Continued consistency there on the GEFS. Look at it expanding too. You just see that? So maybe you saw a couple less, one or two less like higher end range scenarios that lowered the totals, like for some, but others, increased. See, expanded there in the Atlantic, expanded, for Maine as well. Skip that. Exactly what you want. Beauty of a run from the GEFS again. Exactly what you want to see. And then maybe we can get a little bit more consistency on some of those higher, some of those higher ones. Maybe we'll see. I'm not fully bought into to a moderate snowstorm quite yet, but I think we could be trending that way. Like I really do think we're very decent chance we could be trending that way. Also, we're gonna go to the Canadian ensemble should be out, so we'll peep those bad boys. You're in YouTube, appreciate you all. Hit that like if you haven't already. Let's get those panels cooking. I think all the OZs kind of showed a stronger Atlantic Ridge, which is solid. That. Oh man, the GEFS. Wonderful. The GEFS actually, look at this. GEFS actually has, does it have less interior solutions or it just has more hits in general? Look at that. OZ GEFS, man. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Obviously more interior, but there's not many as model runs that are as interior. But you see that? This is a giveaway that the GEFS is probably a little bit, the current Canadians maybe a little bit too far west, is when all your ensemble members are like a tick east. And man, there are some bombs on these runs. More of the members here on the GEFS. There's only 20, but they're further east. Man, it's going to be a hell of a meme. Look at that on the GEFS, man. Oh, Lord have mercy. Look at that. Look at that increase there. Man. Man, look at that on the GEFS. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Loaded GEFS run right there. For the standards, remember. Right? We're not talking about an all-out major. For what we're working with here. Gorgeous. Love to see it. Let's slide here to is the Euro ensemble? Probably not. Yeah, 18Z. OZ hasn't even initialized, so can't wait for that to cook out. But man, gotta post that after. I won't do it now, but gorgeous. All right, I missed some YouTube comments. We had some good stuff. Yes, Rich. Bring the snow to central Mass for sure. Um, yeah, Kevin. Again, yeah, we talked about those. Highest anything is March 2019. Yeah, I remember that one. That was a wet snow kind of too. I remember that one. That was a pretty good one. That kind of salvaged a crappy winter for that one. Let's see. What Ike? How we doing, my man? It's Canadian. Yeah, but yeah, solid looks. Solid looks. Okay, while we wait for the EX to come out, we can talk about as well going forward here. Even if this one wasn't going to hit, I'd be just as excited about what we got going forward here, and not only in the winter but the upcoming pattern as well. I'm very intrigued. So we can see kind of what got printed out here in the GFS. Keep an eye on this system. It's more of a southern snow potential really than a northeast. I think maybe mid-Atlantic scraper maybe, but it's really more of a southern snow potential. You can kind of see that here. I mean, very southern snow. That's to show the kind of Arctic air that's coming in here. So like this, the Arctic air means business for our storm that we're working with currently. Right, this is the beginning of the pattern, right? Beginning and ending of pattern changes. That's when you look for snowstorms. It's not really a full pattern change, but it's a reload. So that's when you can look for storms. This is obviously a time frame right here on the 20th. And right here, something to keep an eye on, something, but I'm intrigued by what comes in behind it. And the GFS has been showing something for a while. I don't care about the GFS showing it, whatever. And obviously, that'd be too far interior. Yeah, I guess theoretically it's possible, and then there could be more even after. We've actually seen some models for this. Look at that fun stuff right there. Get your own little blizzard there in the Northeast. Fun 1001, very strong. Look at that 700 signature right there. Own little death band that pulls out, slides out there, but 300 hours out, obviously. I think down the road here, there's potential here too. I don't, still not, again, Canadian actually friggin' wraps this thing up almost. So we'll keep an eye on this. It's possible. But yeah, Canadian kind of shows that potential there, obviously. And it has at times too. So I'm not dismissing it. I know it kind of looked like I was jumping from model to model run there. I'm not, I need to see more with this. And really, to be honest, we got to get this thing out of the way first too. But it's going to come right on the heels. It's going to come right on the heels. So we'll see here a broader trough. It will really depend on here. One thing I will say is what models did do is they, at least in the short term here, think about how much they underestimated the Atlantic region over the past 36 hours or so. We've done 6 straight runs in a row of stronger Atlantic ridging. If we do that again here, then you could really have, you could have a significant snowstorm threat here because you're really going to dig this system along the Gulf Coast for a while. You're going to dig this along the Gulf Coast for a while, and then it's a matter of, this almost reminds me of, I know you hate to say it, but last Sunday, of what, like almost what could have been. The way we have northern branch of energy that comes diving down here, another piece behind it, kind of progressive or trough. But the difference is you have an Atlantic ridge in place. You have an Atlantic ridge in place, and it's not quite the same either. So when is the snow map? I make the snow map the day that I like to make the snow map closer to the system. I like to just make one snow map and not make 3 maps like other people do. They have their process, whatever. I don't judge it, but for me, I like to just make 1 map, sometimes 2 at the most. If I feel like I've got to make an adjustment, then I'll make 2. But for the most part, just 1. But you're on the Canadian, man. That's an all-out snowstorm here. And I think this would actually be even further north, the P-type map, than what it even showed here. In my opinion. And that's about right. So we'll keep an eye on this. Canadian did well with this system. Maybe not as close now. We'll see how it turns out. Don't completely off-right the Canadian in the just a more interior solution, not necessarily that far, but don't off-right it completely. I'm telling you, because it depends. If you keep amplifying your Atlantic ridge, then it's not impossible. So just don't dismiss it. Maybe not that far, but don't dismiss the Canadian completely. Especially with the consistency it's kind of had. But what the idea here is, your system is along this boundary here, along this TPV on the bottom end again, but this time you get a chance for this to breathe a little bit, and you get this upper level low to form a lot earlier. And so this, you get convection to get out ahead of itself, and then Atlantic ridging here is going to force it to come up the coast. Question is this going to press too much? If this presses down on the system, doesn't allow this to come up, it's like its own confluence basically within the storm. And that's going to really define whether or not this thing would come up. I'd favor more suppressed for right now, but obviously the Canadian and the Euro last night highlighted that potential as well. So that's the 22nd. And then there's another one to watch also, the 23rd, 24th to 26th as well. So those are kind of the storm, that map that I made like 6 days ago, or not the map, but like that timeline discussing it, that kind of remains roughly the same. And I said that you would likely be unable to get all three to hit, and it'd probably be more 2 out of 3 of these systems. I'm not ruling it out that you could get 3 out of 3. I'm not ruling it out, but I would lean more 2 out of 3 that you'd be able to cash in on. And then I don't think it stops. You just continue to have cold air on tap after. Even if you have a more southeast ridge, maybe you get a more interior storm track at some point. We're kind of due at some point to have an interior storm track. Oh, crap. Did I not adjust what happened to the title? The YouTube live with restream. I hate the title for the YouTube one. I don't know what happened. It's confusing. The title on the stream says it shows. It bothers me. I'm trying to get other people here to come in, so it's whatever. I can adjust it after, but I don't know why I did that. It's frustrating. But here in the Euro, I don't know what the Euro did for tonight with this. We can peep here. Yeah, Euro's not quite, kind of shunts it. So Canadian, there's a lightning flash. No, thank you. You can kind of see that shunts it off here. But it's able to get the ride up. That ridge, man, that really works that precipitation up. For as much as it's pressing down, man, it's impressive. It's impressive how much moisture is able to work up here, as much as this is pressing down. And then you can kind of see it after as well. Another one to watch here. 25th to 26th. But still too early for obviously to go into the depths of that. And this is, but you can kind of see here this reload, it's not the same as the previous. Told you there's a huge difference with the Atlantic region. Gene McGrath, how you doing? Long Island. Eastern end or western Long Island? And north or southern side of the island. But I would say Long Island has a good shot to see accumulating snow out of this system, but I would still use a little caution of the mix line, especially Eastern Long Island, just a little bit of caution. But I wouldn't favor it for at the moment, at least. Yeah. Moses got sponsored by Mose here. Oh, there's our P-type maps though for our system. GFS, Canadian. Brother, when do you get sleep? Sleep when I'm dead. Dun, slider, GEM. Sneakier. Keep an eye on this. Keep an eye on this, man. 'Cause that was a bomb of a run there, especially for the Mid-Atlantic too. Here's, and that's the thing here with this. The reason why I'm so intrigued here with this reload, just in general, is you have consistent Atlantic ridging in place. You have consistent Atlantic ridging in place, and you have polar vortex, consistent Arctic deep cold air in place. So what you do here is now you're creating a consistent thermal gradient. Yeah, hopefully, I don't know. Sorry, Gina, I don't know what part of the island you're on for LI, but um, whether you're Suffolk or west end of Long Island, I don't know, closer to NYC, but north side of the island, Montauk, I don't know where, but theoretically some mixing is possible in a more interior solution, even if it's not quite as far as the Canadian. But Long Island, I think, has a good shot to be able to see some accumulating snow with this with this event. NASA, okay, yeah, yeah. You have a decent you're in a pretty decent spot here to see some accumulating snow. I think you have a good shot to see at least multiple inches of snow here in Long Island with this setup at a minimum. Could theoretically be higher ceiling for Long Island. A little bit more of a boom or bust maybe for Long Island. Maybe a lower floor, but you do have a pretty decent ceiling there as well. But in general, here with the reload guys, I think there is good potential. Yeah, Kevin, it is rare to see a Gulf Coast winter storm. Little 2015 like, not remember those. If you remember, there was some Gulf. I think there was Gulf snow, or at least Gulf model runs in 2015. If anybody remembers any of that at all, but uh, so a little 2015 like, with the way the Arctic air is, a little familiar, but I really think here this, I'm not saying 2015 winter, but man, it's hard until you see it happen, but I think this could really end up being a pretty good winter here, guys. I really do think I'm way more confident in the odds of this being, an average to above average winter than I was earlier in the winter, for sure. You think about that, even after this reload here that we get, like if we were to get 2 storms out of this, which would be fantastic. We were to get 2 storms out of this, we still have all of February, all of March, and especially for the interior, April. Theoretically May sometimes too. So we have a lot of winter left. Can't stress it enough. For a lot of people, all it takes is one big storm too. For a lot of people, like say if New York City got 6 inches in this next snow in this next event, New York City would be at 10 inches then, and you'd be like almost halfway to your seasonal total of like an average. Like you'd be halfway to 20 inches in New York City. You're about 4, I think, right now in New York City. 4.5 total. Or are you higher? You're like 4 to 5 inches in New York City right now. That would put you at like 10, 11. Say if you were to get 5, 6 inches, and then boom, you're halfway there by January 20th. You're already halfway to your winter totals. Almost. I think New York City is like 20, 25 inches of snow on average in winter. And that's with the new totals of the fun stretch we had from like 2010 to 2022. All right, EPS. What do we got here? So just initialize. Luckily, the EPS comes out quick. So let's peep actually the ensembles for the 22nd. I want to see that. This here too will be a big thing. Is stream separation will define how much we press on this system. So this system here is going to directly affect our 20th. This system is going to directly affect. So how this transpires will have a direct effect on how much snow comes the one after. So that will be something to keep an eye on. So I'm not dismissing the Canadian here for the longer range, but I will say, assuming it's too interior, it might be might be affecting the the wave propagation that we see off the bottom of our trough here. So not dismissing it, but so let's peep the GEFS here. What's that look actually? How does that compare to 18Z? Oh, okay. A little bit better of a look actually. GEFS here. Not bad. Not bad here on the GEFS. Again, there you're in YouTube, hit that like if you don't mind. Just does great pleasure and helps a lot. Helps with the algorithm on YouTube. Again, we're expanding here on YouTube. And especially got any Southern folks or you're curious, whatever, just in general, I won't be talking about just Southern, but keep an eye on maybe a collab upcoming here on YouTube with someone notable, definitely on YouTube, and someone you might have heard of on WX Twitter as well. So keep an eye. No promises, nothing guaranteed, but maybe something in the works. Keep an eye on that. But let me get to the panels here. It's regions, and by the time we're done with this, we should be able to get be able to peep the Euro ensembles, and I think that will be telling, in my opinion, for sure. We'll kind of display the threat a little bit better as well. Let's see here. Here's the GEFS ensembles. All right. There are some close hits. No actual real hits. There's like one scraper. There's one for the Mid-Atlantic. Some big ones just offshore. 18Z, I don't think. Did it? All right. All righty. So keep an eye on this. Keep a close eye. This is one that could be a real late bloomer too. This is definitely one that could be a late bloomer because there's just so many moving pieces right now. So I wouldn't, I know I'm a little dismissive a little bit of this right now, but I wouldn't completely dismiss it. Keep an eye on this still. 22nd, 23rd. Keep an eye on this freaking time frame. Yeah. Rhode Island winter storm warning, weather advisory. I had a question about that too. Not disrespectful towards you whatsoever, Dylan. I don't give a crap. Like honestly about the winter. Not to sound dismissive, like NWS, they do great work. Love their forecast discussions and stuff, but I try not to let that influence too much. Whether or not they had the winter storm warning or not. They play catch up a lot too. They don't often stick to their stuff. I don't want to assume too much, but they're not perfect. Obviously, they're human, but they do great stuff, great work, and but theoretically, warning snow, I guess, is possible. But I don't know I know their criteria, but it really depends on if their forecast meets the criteria, and my forecast is going to always be different than their forecast. Usually, most of the time. So sometimes. So here's the Canadian. I don't think it's a tough look right there. Of course, Dylan. Glad I could give you some clarity. Yeah, I don't know. I know you're from Providence, but I don't know. They're tricky sometimes. It's hard to get a read on. Sometimes they're showing borderline and they won't go with the winter storm warning. Sometimes they do. They usually lean pretty stingy with those, Dylan. So, but if it was like 6+ inches, then they would. If it was 5, 6+, then like it's gonna be easier to get winter storm warnings here because most of it's gonna come in a 12-hour period, and that's how they do their stuff there. Yeah, Canadians got a lot of close hits, man. A couple of scrapers. So I'm not dismissing it, but still a tough look. Oh, 12Z Canadian had more hits, to be honest, but so yeah, it's 6 and 12 hours, I think. But usually 4 to 8 is their winter storm warning. Sometimes 3 to 7 every once in a while, but typically that's usually actually 3 to 7 is usually what winter weather advisory, especially in western central Mass. 4 to usually they got to be the forecast for a winter storm. Anything 4 to 8 and above, they still go with. Let's go to Euro Ensemble. Where we at? Man, it's 6 hours. What the hell? Must have got stuck or something. I think the Euro Ensemble stuck. 6 hours when we left it. Eastern North Carolina here. It's looking interesting. Yes. Carolina definitely is very interesting. Definitely is very interesting. Very, very, very high potential here in the Carolinas. Now and again, if listen, we live in the Northeast. A lot of my people here, so we in the Mid Atlantic. So it's hard for us to both get snow a lot of times. Obviously, you're seeing that with the 20th here, this upcoming storm. But going forward, going forward, this is it would be we would want if we were to see this to really amplify, then that would make it difficult. You could have mixing concerns, but yeah, you're in a spot here to be able to get something, but still almost 5 days out maybe, so you still got a lot of time before this thing really comes in 4 or 5 days out. So patience there with this one, Tim. But yeah, you definitely Carolinas in general have a good chance with this one. Canadians one of the more bullish here, obviously. So. But man, yeah, the consistent Atlantic ridging that we have in place, that's the exciting part about this reload here. And you can kind of see that even though as this system's getting pressed on here, this ridging riding up the coast here is perfect. Beautiful. The only thing you would wish for is this just kept going here. That's the only thing you would wish for here. The 22nd, 25th, I have a real good clue on that one, but I think there is a big storm possible. I don't know where quite yet or the specifics, but there is a big storm possible. 24th to 25th. Euro GFS may have the best handle so far. I really like a combination of all three right now for the 20th. I think Euro, GFS, and Canadian, if you took all three, those would be kind of that's kind of where my head's now. If you combined all three, I think that's kind of where I'm kind of leaning at the moment. That's kind of where my head's at. The amount of times I've gotten warning level snow under WWA is crazy. Yeah, I mean, you need to get it. Just sometimes it's really close, other times it's not. Look at this year, freaking December 7th, right, or December 5th, I think it was. I mean, I only personally got like 3.5 inches one, but of snow, but there's like 6 to 9 inches in Connecticut, Massachusetts, right on the border there in Central Mass and Northern Connecticut. I enjoyed that storm. That was a good one. That was one I forecasted well too. I was happy about that for sure. Have had a couple of iffy snow maps this year. So far, decent success rate, I think. So far, passing at least. More successful than failing, which is good. 3 inches is warning level here in eastern North Carolina. Yeah, a little bit different. A little bit different down there. It doesn't take quite as much to get those, and especially ice too. They'll put those out as well for those winter storm warnings. They don't do those as much for ice up here. More so just winter weather advisories most of the time. Do they do ice storm warnings still? I don't know. Yeah, Boston's criteria is about 6+. Pretty sure. We can look at it. Where is this? Boston. Here we go. Snow, ocean, or sleet. 7 for the Berks, 6 for everyone else. Blizzard warning. They took out the blizzard watches. They never issue these anymore. Even if it is close to blizzard conditions possible, they still won't. They need confirmed it has to be slam dunk blizzard likely for them to issue these. They still do issue ice storm warnings, 1/2 inch or greater. So that doesn't happen a ton up here. Usually we're more sleet and snow than freezing rain up here in the Northeast. If we do get freezing rain, it's usually a 1/4 inch or less, almost always. Unlike the mid South and the Midwest, those warm air advection events set up, classic for freezing rain. Weather advisories. They adjusted this whole system, I think, not too long ago. Look at that. I did not know this. So they issue winter weather advisories for snow and blowing snow. I did not know that. Sustained or frequent gusts of 25 to 34 miles per hour, accompanied by blowing snow. So basically blizzard conditions, but 25 to 35 mile per hour winds in not 3 hours. So they don't issue. So I didn't know that they issue blowing snow warnings, or sorry, winter weather advisories. For black ice too, man. I thought they just put out special weather statements, or did they put all this in? Did they take out special weather statements, possibly? Haven't had an ice storm warning in a while, which is fine. Yeah, those are terrible. I think 2008 we had a terrible one here in New England. Terrible one. 07, 08. I forget if it was 07 or 08. But yeah. Yeah, I think it was 07 or 08. I can't remember. But yeah, so what's the let me check the EPS. Let me check the EPS here too. No, it's still stuck kind of. It's all right. It's all right. I'll post them. All right. We'll live stream tomorrow night. I appreciate everybody coming in. Hit that like on your way out, and should be fun times here. Okay, should be fun times. We got a storm to track for the updates on Twitter.